Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Margaret, my name is
PowerPoint,
Margaret
PowerPoint.
O'Connor, and I'm a junior at Tufts University. And sorry, is that better? Okay. And co-chair of an organization there called Allies, the Alliance Linking Leaders in Education and the Services. And I would just like to begin this presentation by thanking Lucas and Roz for inviting me to sit on such a distinguished panel. I'm going to try and be brief because I'm sure that we're all eager to get to the question and answer sessions. But what I would like to do at this time is to share with you what I think is a really promising initiative to bridge some of the gaps that we've been discussing so far this morning between our future leaders on the civilian side of national security and on the military side. And that is what we do at Allies. Okay, so I'd like to begin with just drawing your attention to two quotes from Secretary Gates and the following from former Secretary Rice about the need for civilian and military participation in national security. So the challenges that we've been discussing this morning come from both the government side of things and within our society. At the government level, they include a disparity in capacity between the Department of Defense and other government agencies. The Department of Defense budget dwarfs by far any other government agency. Cultural and institutional differences, stovepiped career paths with little interagency focus, and a lack of civil military education at the undergraduate level to help bring these two different types of cultures together. And within society, we see a limited civilian exposure to the military, persistent suspicion and lack of trust on both sides. And after 9/11, while many of our country's young men and women were showing up to recruitment centers in droves, our commander-in-chief at that time encouraged the nation's citizenry to go shopping and failed to capitalize on that sort of spirit of service and the fact that we are all in it together, as the title of this panel rightfully asserts. And a lack of proportional representation of our nation as a whole within the armed forces. Currently, the armed forces are vastly more Southern, insular, and conservative than the population as a whole. And that only serves to exacerbate the institutional gaps that we see between civilians and the military. So right about the same time as those two quotes that I showed you before, those statements were being made at the highest level. At Tufts, there were 3 students who, through their experience at another program at Tufts called EPIC, where military students were invited to participate and attend a symposium there. Through their interactions with those students, realized that there was a huge gap in their understanding of U.S. foreign policy because they did not understand where the military was coming from or how it operated or how their future careers would interact with it. And so they decided to capitalize on the relationship that already existed between Tufts and the academies and create this institution called Allies. So at Allies, we attempt to bridge this military gap through joint education and relationship building and training. And right now, our organization consists of a Tufts chapter, a chapter at the Air Force Academy, a really vibrant chapter at the Naval Academy, and a chapter in its infancy at West Point. So it's not just a Tufts initiative. It has independent chapters at 4 of these institutions. On the education side of things, our flagship program is the Joint Research Project, which is an annual program that takes students from Tufts and from the military academies away together for a month in the summer to conduct research together on a topic of shared interest. So the past 2 years, they've traveled to Jordan, and I participated in last year's Joint Research Project. And what we were studying there was the effect of the Iraq War on one of the United States' major allies. And so we looked at several different subtopics, from refugee issues to democratic reform there to regional diplomacy between Jordan and its Middle Eastern neighbors. We also have, in the Tufts Peace and Justice Studies program, a movement to create a shared curriculum with the academies. That, as you can probably imagine, is a very slow-moving process because of institutional red tape. But Professor Paul Joseph of the Peace and Justice Studies program is beginning to integrate video conferencing with students at the Naval Academy into his course on the sociology of war and peace. In other just general programming, Tufts students attend Service Academy Foreign Affairs conferences. They come to our conferences. And that's a really good opportunity to have a dialogue about foreign policy and just about the civil-military relationship in general. As an individual chapter, Allies at Tufts holds other events to educate not only our members but the broader Tufts community about these issues, and this is just an example of a symposium that we held last year in conjunction with the Tufts Democrats. On the training side of things, some of the programs that we've had in the past have included Tufts students participating in the U.S. Marine Corps' Force Civil Affairs Group exercise in Quantico, Virginia. 3 Tufts students attended FAHUM. I don't speak Spanish, so excuse me. Fuerzas Aliadas Humanitarias, which is a joint disaster response exercise for 26 Latin American and Caribbean countries. That took place in 2007, and 3 Tufts students attended that as observers. And earlier this year, Tufts students participated with Air Force ROTC cadets from Detachment 365, which includes ROTC students from Tufts, MIT, and Harvard in a crisis simulation as well. And so there was role playing for the civilian and military aspects of what to do in a crisis. And then in terms of relationships, during any of our joint events, we try and make plenty of time for dialogue about issues such as many of the things we've been discussing today, the role of class and class gaps in the military, gender, sexuality, and political differences as well. So for Allies, our big goal is to help move our country and especially future leadership from a situation where you see this to one where you see this. Civilian and military leaders standing shoulder to shoulder to share the burden of national security and the national interest. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Margaret, how many students, non-military students, are active, if you are aware of this, in Allies? And is there any data on the effects of the program that you're aware of so far?
That's an excellent question. At Tufts, I would say we have about 20 to 25 students who participate regularly in our weekly meetings and other programming, and probably an additional 15 to 20 students who attend events from time to time and are on our e-list. I can't speak to the numbers at the academies. I just don't know. They usually send about 4 representatives to our conferences, but that's definitely only a small representation of their participation at their institutions. And as of now, we don't have any data on the effectiveness of the program in terms of its impact on larger society, but as an institution, we do have an annual review process for our programming, like the Joint Research Project, where we critique it and continually try and make it better so that it can continue in the future and be of value to the students involved.
Thank you.